is there a celebrity death that's ever bothered you? Right?
Yeah.
When you're sitting on the couch and all of a sudden extra extra and they're like so and so has passed away at age whatever, right? Has there ever been a one that's made you go, "Oh no."
Yeah.
What? Okay. Which
This is
ones?
going to sound so crazy because it should be something more important than this.
Uh-huh.
But Prince,
Prince.
golly, when Prince died, I was like, holy crap, man, because a lot of Prince's music was kind of the soundtrack of portions of my life.
Okay.
You know, as a freshman in high school.
I knew you liked him, but I've never heard you say it that way.
Well,
Interesting.
As a freshman in high school, I had a buddy who was really into music, and I wasn't. You know, back then you just couldn't listen to music. You had to go find it, hunt it down.
You had to. I
Yeah.
mean, probably not records at this time. It was tapes for sure, though, huh?
Yeah, cassette tapes.
Okay.
But or you would put a cassette tape in your boombox and you record it off the radio. You could do that too, right?
Man, those were the days, weren't it? You remember when you could do that? That was one of my favorite parts of VCRs back in the day too. The first 20 times I watched Dumb and Dumber, it was off of an ABC or recorded one, and we had to fast forward through the Sizzler commercials and stuff like that. You had to get to the we went too far, and you have to go back a little bit to get to the movie.
Well, there was this kid that I went to school with that was really into music and would buy all the new stuff.
What was his name?
Oh shoot, I can't remember. I want to say Mike Losick.
Mike Losick. Okay.
Could have been him. Could have been Alan Thompson. There's two guys that were, and they weren't best friends of mine, but they were guys that I knew that occasionally
in your circle
I would run.
Did you play any sports with them?
I played soccer with Michael at one point, or I'm sorry, with Alan. Michael was an interesting character that ended up becoming like a Hell's Angel kind of a guy.
Okay.
But as a kid,
was he kind of a metalhead in school?
No. He was a little lost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he and Alan ran together all the time. But Alan picked at him a lot. He was kind of Alan's whipping boy.
Okay.
But I remember he had some Prince, and it was so erotic.
Yeah.
That you couldn't play it on the radio.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to listen to this guy. And so I started listening. I'm like, it's like Erotic Airplane or something, you know. And the song he's saying crap that you don't even say out loud, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't listen to that, Mike. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really want to listen to it.
You know, there are some people who don't listen to lyrics at all, and some people who, I think I'm one of those guys that listens to lyrics every single time.
Sure.
I'll notice all of the beats and everything, but lyrics are at the top of they're the top of the cream, right?
Well, you couldn't miss
some people
this guy's.
don't, right? Yeah.
This guy's lyrics were straight out of, Playboy magazine.
Sure, yeah.
And so I remember thinking, Penthouse. That was the other big one. But I remember.
I only know that because of Seinfeld, by the way. There's an episode where they talk about Seinfeld.
Yeah.
He's got penthouses
and
in the dentist
And I only
office.
know that because Michael had him under his mattress. But I remember Michael's dad, by the way, was a pastor, a youth pastor.
Oh, I think I know a Michael story that I want you to tell in a minute if you can.
And
sorry,
so
that was the first time you heard Prince.
Yeah, but I heard that Prince, and I just I'm not listening to this guy. But then a few years later, he came out with "I Want to Be Your Lover." I want to be your lover. Good song, right? And then he just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was just like, "Holy crap, this dude!"
That's the one. The album. It's like him from the shoulders up, and he's got this feathered hair, and he's doing like this face like this. You know?
And I think when he actually sang the song, the most popular video he ever did for that song, I think he was wearing a Speedo on stage, and that's it.
Okay.
Like that was who. He was still in the.
Yeah.
He kind of dipped his toe in the erotic, and also dipped his toe in spirituality somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know, like late in his life, at least, past the prime of his 80s and 90s, he was a pretty deep Christian guy.
Right.
Yeah.
But my brother Craig, one of his favorite things to do, and I asked him about this recently, was every Sunday morning he would get ready for church, and he would play Erotic City, and it was the record that was the big record, so it was like 13 minutes long.
The song was,
and he would put it on in Erotic City and get ready for church. And I'd be like, really, Craig? He's like, dude, listen to the song, man. And that was one where you could have maybe not listened to the lyrics, but it was still so dang.
Well, if it's 13 minutes long,
cool.
It's a lot of instrumental too, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, because that's how I Want to Be Your Lover. Only the first quarter of it has any lyrics.
Right.
The rest of it's all instrumental.
Right. And you remember, I think one night, me and you and Zach stayed up late.
Yeah, let me tell that story in a second.
Okay.
Because we're talking about Prince, but keep going. So,
Yeah.
So you hear him for the first time, you could barely listen to him, and then you said he was like the soundtrack to certain parts of your
Yeah,
life.
and I remember right after, or I was still in high school, and his big album, I think it was 1999, came out. I could be getting it wrong, but I remember the school was just ablaze with Prince, and I remember
1999 had Little Red Corvette on it.
Little Red Corvette, yeah, I Would Die for You,
okay.
all the greats, you know.
Okay,
just,
was that one?
When Doves Cry.
No, that was Purple Rain. Purple
You're
Rain
right,
has
you're
Doves
right.
Cry.
Okay, maybe I'm getting them mixed
okay,
up.
okay.
Maybe I'm getting them mixed up. Maybe
They
it was
both
Purple
came
Rain.
out pretty like close. Maybe they didn't.
But I remember
anyway.
my high school was just littered with certain songs would remind me of certain things. And I was on a double date the first time I heard I Would Die for You with a good buddy of mine, Charlie, and two girls. We were on this double date, and the girls were singing along, and I'm like, this is
It's killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was that, and there was Your Mom and I used to listen to Prince. That was one of the, she used to like Madonna, some of Madonna's early stuff.
That was Mom's favorite. Was Madonna.
But then Prince had some real poppy songs too.
Yeah.
That she loved that we would listen to a lot. So it was really, a lot of that was like, there's moments in my life where I remember specific Prince songs, but probably the greatest thing ever was I was invited, I didn't even pay for the ticket, but I had met this girl.
Okay.
And she said, I got tickets to the Prince concert at Reunion Arena. And it was New Year's Eve night going into 1985. And I
Dang.
remember that. I don't remember dates well.
Yeah.
But I remember that because there was a black guy behind us that kept screaming, "Getting live in '85!" all concert long. Because like Prince was on, I think the concert started at 10:30.
Was that the name of the concert? Getting Live in '85?
No,
Oh,
it was just him.
Oh, it was just that guy.
Just that guy screaming it. But
that guy caught a catchphrase and he's like, I'm not letting this go.
But I remember the clock turned to January 1st, 1985 while we were in Reunion Arena listening to Prince.
Okay.
And I'll never forget his songs.
Hold on, just sorry, we moved up here to Idaho when I was 11, right? And I was telling someone this the other day. They're like, "So how familiar are you with it?" I was like, "I don't know the highways, right?"
Right.
Which I think is like if you know the highways, you grew up there, and I don't know the highways in Texas, right? So, like, where is Reunion Arena in the scheme of like near your house, or is it one of the newer arenas, or is it
back then it was a newer? Back then it was
okay.
So the Mavericks, I think, came in 1980 maybe, or around that time, and they built the arena for them.
For the Mavericks, okay.
And it was just in the shadow of Reunion Tower, which was you've seen the ball on the stick. That's Reunion Tower, and every year the ball would have different lights on it.
Yeah.
So it was a new arena, and I think it held 15,000 people or so. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they set it up.
So it was in downtown Dallas,
It was in downtown Dallas, which was probably, downtown was only about 5 miles from my house.
Yeah.
I mean, I could run there if I needed to.
Stadiums in downtown,
so cool.
If you're in a major city, your stadium needs to be downtown.
It's so cool.
Don't be on the outskirts. Put your arena downtown.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It's the best. It's the coolest.
But I remember that just watching them and thinking, and I had been to a couple concerts, and a lot of times you go to concerts that you want to hear live music, but you know it's live music because it just doesn't sound.
Yeah.
But Prince sounded like he was in a studio, and
Jamming.
you knew he was singing because he was going off on different tangents, and and you were like, this dude is so freaking talented, man. And he played every instrument he'd go over and grab the guitar, then he'd grab the bass, then he'd hop on the piano, then he'd play the drums. And you were like, is there anything this guy doesn't do, man? And sing, and it was like, I was just like, this dude is a freaking genius musician, man. And so that when he died, I'm like, I felt like I had a connection with, and I love funk music anyway.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites,
Yeah.
you know. So Rick James wasn't so hard on me, but yeah, when Prince died, I'm like, golly, I felt it a little deeper than.
Yeah.
Especially too, because once guys, you'll find this. Once guys start dying, that were your age or your generation,
Sure.
It kind of creates this image of, wait a minute, we're not going to live forever.
Yeah. And I'm in the same I'm in the same demographic technically as that
wait a
dude.
minute.
Yeah.
Prince died, dude. He's only.
Yeah.
He's my age. Mm-hmm. What the heck?
And I don't think that this was your mentality necessarily, but this is a couple years after Michael Jackson died too.
Yeah.
Maybe within 5 years.
It wasn't long, yeah.
It was in 5 years, right?
Right.
And I think everybody, because, they had this kind of like maybe imaginary beef. I don't think that they disliked each other, but it was like, are you a Michael fan or are you a Prince fan?
Right.
Right.
As if you couldn't be both, right?
Everyone is both, right?
Yeah.
But I think there was a little bit of this like error where it was like, once Michael died, it's like, dang, well, at least Prince ain't killing himself with drugs, you know?
Yeah.
At least Prince ain't, getting assisted suicide by his fentanyl doctor or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, same thing happens to him. And so it was like, dang, is this going to take everybody that was important in that scene, It is such a bummer to hear that they both went in very similar ways.
Yeah, why couldn't they just take Springsteen instead? Somebody's going to get mad at that, right?
Yeah.
Or a couple of the Beatles or something. I don't know. Leave Prince. Leave Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
It's different. But, yeah, that's kind of the...
Yeah.
It kind of, you kind of start looking at your life a little... I mean, it's not overwhelming, but you start to realize that there's... And then for all of us, right? And you're like, God, this guy had so much music that impacted my life,
Yeah.
You want to tell the story about the night we stayed up late?
Yeah, so my introduction to Prince, right? And I've spouted off a couple of I think that's in that album. I'm a pretty big Prince fan inherently, right?
Right.
My introduction to Prince was, it seemed like a semi-tradition. Like whenever anybody got sick in the house, right? Usually more than one person would get sick at a time.
Right.
But there was kind of this like sick to the point where you couldn't sleep. It hurts you so much, right? You had a pretty good habit that I really liked as a kid. You would stay up with us, right? If we couldn't sleep, and we would hunker down in the living room. You'd throw out a blanket. We got the de facto popcorn bucket for throw up, right? Which I think every household has. I think every household has the favorite burner on the stove, and a de facto throw up bucket, right? That you still clean out and put popcorn in somehow.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah, I ate just as many popcorns out of that bucket as I threw up in it. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why.
It's usually a big round one too, so you can catch everything.
With a wide lip on it.
With a little,
yeah.
You don't want a small bucket because you don't want to miss.
Yeah. I don't know how we thought it was okay to serve popcorn in the throw up bucket, but we did it plenty. So you would stay up with us, and I think at this time, me and Zach were both sick at the same time, so you stayed up with us. And, back in the early 2000s, what would happen if you stayed up late enough, right? You would catch 3 episodes of George Lopez, right? And then what would come on right after that is, hi, I'm so-and-so from REO Speedwagon, and I want to talk to you about a collection of 90 CDs with 100 of the greatest hits, right? You know what I mean? Or whatever, right?
Yep.
It was the singer from REO Speedwagon, and they would show clips of the music videos, and they would have that scroll, and it would say, these are the greatest love songs of the 80s, right? Or these are the hardest rocking songs of the 80s, right? And I remember it was that one, and we were sitting, and me and Zach were like, oh, I know that one. Oh, I don't know that one. I know that one. I don't know that one, right? And you're sitting on the couch kind of in the background, and there's a lull in the commercial, and you go, they're not even talking about the best dude from that era. And we're like, what do you mean? They mentioned Van Halen. They mentioned, Aerosmith. They've hit all the goods, And you're like, no. There's one guy that is a head above all of them, and that's Prince, right? Mm-hmm. And we said, tell us, Father, about Prince, right? Yeah.
Tell us, Father.
Yeah. Tell us, Father, the story of the great Prince, right? Yeah. So you said, here we go.
It was probably more like, shut up, Dad.
No. I think we were just sick delusional enough that we're like, who is this? Is that the one who had the symbol for his name, Yeah,
that's the best time to impact your kids is when they're delusional or
yeah.
asleep.
Of course, me and Zach had heard Little Red Corvette. We had heard, some of those that, are on the radio in at least 20 years later from when they came out. But you said, here we go. And you pulled out our laptop, right? Because that was the family computer, was a laptop, right? You spent 15 minutes trying to connect to the Wi-Fi that we were stealing from the neighbor. No. This is when Wi-Fi came out, but we were too cheap to buy it for ourselves. So we were using the whichever wireless network we could connect to from the neighbor that didn't have a password on there.
That's right.
That's who we're connecting to. And you hopped on YouTube and you typed in Prince, and I think the first one, this is how I remember it because this is the one that stuck. You pulled up Computer Blue by Prince. You remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you full screened it. This is before you could once a month, me and you watch music videos on the big TV, right? This is before that. So, right, you put full screen on this laptop, and we watched the music video from Computer Blue, which is just the scene from the Purple Rain movie,
right.
where he's performing it, right? And it was like, whoa,
Yeah,
this guy.
I was watching you guys. I wasn't watching the video. I was watching you guys, and y'all were shook. Y'all's eyes got big, and y'all were like, is this really existing? Is this my dad's?
Yeah. And me and Zach were getting into like music more than ever because like of Guitar Hero and Rock Band, right? And that's how we knew who,
That's how you knew all
that's
the
how
bands.
we knew who Fleetwood Mac was or whoever had a song on Guitar Hero, right?
There you go.
But we didn't know who Prince was, and it's because Prince wouldn't license his music for that crap.
That's right.
Prince said if a kid wants to learn guitar, he should go learn the freaking guitar, not a game controller, right?
Right.
So we were like, whoa, because you hear Little Red Corvette, and you're like, great song, but you don't realize it's him doing it all, right?
Right.
So we watched the Computer Blue video. Minds melted. That made a huge impact. And I think there was one other music video that you showed us, right?
Yep.
Because, of course, on the greatest love songs of the 80s, they came up with Whitesnake, but it was Here I Go Again.
Yeah.
Right? Which in my mind is the most generic of the Whitesnake,
Yes.
right? It's fine, right?
Right.
But you showed us Still of the Night by Whitesnake, which rocks so freaking hard.
You guys couldn't shut up. Y'all were watching it, and y'all were like, is he, what?
Is that a violin?
Was it?
Yeah.
Both of you were like, is he?
Yeah.
Y'all would look at each other and look back, and
Plus, the girl in the video was hot, so it was
yeah. They always are in those hair band videos.
Dude, man. Whitesnake would pull in some hotties for their videos,
Sure
which
would.
you told me later. That's the girl that beat up her Major League Baseball
She
girlfriend,
ended
right?
up getting arrested for.
Do you remember her name?
I want to say Tawny Katane,
Tawny Katane.
but I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I bet if we look it up, I'm not far off.
Yeah.
I want to say Tawny Katane.
Hopefully someone's watching this video and they jump in the comments and tell us who it was.
There you go.
The girl in the Whitesnake video, right? Tawny Katane.
Yeah.
So she was married or
at one
dating
point,
a baseball
At one
player.
point, she was married to a professional baseball pitcher.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't remember his name, but I think he was a lefty.
Okay.
For some reason.
Why would you know that?
I
That's
don't
so
know.
funny, yeah.
But I don't know why.
Yeah,
I know
Lefty
that.
Henderson. That's who it was.
I don't remember. Yeah. Somebody will know. They'll know.
Yeah.
People know.
If anybody's watching this, which we don't know if they are, please throw who did Tawny Katane date?
And if we got it all wrong, we got it all wrong.
Yeah,
Straighten
tell
us
us,
out.
let us know.
Yeah. But the name Tawny Katane, you just always have to say that any chance you get anyway, though, don't you?
Well, you can't say Tawny and you can't say Katane. You gotta say Tawny Katane.
Katane.
Yeah.
Yes. There you
So
go.
she got found out she was whooping up on her boyfriend.
She was abusing her professional athlete husband,
Dang.
which I'm sure he heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
still,
Allegedly, by the
yeah,
way.
and allegedly, and still not a good reason not to be with her. The way she looks, you know what I'm saying? Because I can take a punch.
Yeah. Yeah. If a black eye means you get to be with Tawny Katane,
Tawny Katane, black eye.
yep. Give
I'm
me
black.
2 of them. We're good through the next year, right?
I just want to make sure we're clear on that. If you're
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
Tawny,
Yeah. And we hope you are, right?
I understand.
Yep.
I can.
These
keep
are all
quiet.
allegations,
I
Tawny.
can keep quiet.
We know. Yeah. Yeah, I can keep my mouth shut if I need to. That's funny. Yeah, so that was my first soiree into Prince, right?
Yeah.
And you know,
If I'm not mistaken, you guys took that Whitesnake video and made it and took it to your friends who were
oh
into
yeah,
music
we
too.
had it charting on the tables. Yeah, so one of my best friends in high school's name is Cameron Carlson, right? And Cameron Carlson was also getting into rock and roll music at the same time as the rest of us because everyone was playing Guitar Hero, playing Rock Band. But Cameron Carlson, he would not play Rock Band, not play Guitar Hero, and then he would just go play guitar, right? He would watch us, and then he'd go do it. He was one of the guys that legit learned how to play guitar
right
at that time.
Which there are a couple.
Right.
There's some of those
Totally,
guys.
totally. Yeah, one of my other buddies, Derek Holmstead, he learned how to play guitar too.
Right.
I was the only one that didn't because I stunk at all that stuff, right?
We're not very
I was like,
musical.
I'm going to shred on the buttons, but I'm not. Don't give me the strings, right?
We're not a very musical family.
I'm not patient enough either, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Cameron Carlson had a base knowledge of that 80s music, that especially 80s like rock and roll,
Right.
that most kids didn't have, right? So he introduced me to Van Halen, right? And Van Halen was his absolute favorite. That was
Right.
top of the charts for Cameron Carlson, right?
Right.
And so I said, hey, Cameron, I got this new song to show you. It's called Still of the Night. We watched the music video, and he was like, whoa, right?
So great.
Right? I remember one time he had this big white truck, and we went out to this party with a bunch of other kids, and there was this girl that he was really into, right? But she was giving him the cold shoulder, right? Like she had yeah, I'm all of
That's
Cam,
all right.
all of Cameron's
Cameron's
dirty
gonna watch
all
and
of,
love
all of
this,
Cameron's dirty laundry's going on the lawn. He had a crush on this girl, and it was one of those situations where she gave him the light of day and then she took it away from him.
Oh.
Right? Where she gave him the affection he desired and the reciprocation of these feelings, and then the next time he saw her, it was cold shoulder, and she was goosing on some other dude, right?
Gotcha.
Which goosing, I don't know if that's the right term, but whatever that means, right?
Right.
So I remember after this party, he was like, "Dang man, what the heck happened there? I thought things were going well with this girl, right?"
Right.
And so we were in his big white truck. It was a stick shift, I remember, because he was one of the guys that knew how to drive stick shift. It was before I got the car that I learned on.
Right.
And he was also one of the guys that had it was the cassette tape with the auxiliary cord that came off of the cassette tape. So you'd plug in that cassette tape. Before you had aux cords that plugged straight in the stereo or even Bluetooth, right? There was the cassette tape, and I don't know how they jerry-rigged that, but like it had the aux cord that came out of it. He plugged in his iPod, and I was like, what angry, sad song are we listening to? And we listened to Still of the Night, and we cranked it all the way up. And it was kind of out, passing to Kuna, so we were driving through these dark roads, listening to Still of the Night, and we were jamming super hard, right?
Were tears running down
No,
your face?
no. Right? Yeah.
Two guys?
Yeah. I feel your heartbeat, honey. Right? In this, yeah. But we loved, so we were jamming, dude, and we were doing that cringy thing where we were both like air drumming and head banging with no hair, we were going hard. And not 2 weeks later, I go over to his house and he's like, "Hey, Al, check this out." And he pulls out the guitar and he goes, he had figured out that whole riff, which was the hardest part of the song, right?
Sure.
Because the bow part was actually pretty easy if you had a bow.
Yeah.
But it was that opening riff that was actually the toughest part. And his fingers started flying, and he was like, "I did it." And I was like, "Dang, boy." Because he's the kind of guy that had the patience that he would lock himself into the room,
right,
and he wouldn't come out until he had done it, and he did it.
That's slick. We're not. You and I aren't built like that.
No.
We're
I'm
more
not
social
patient enough. Yeah.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I'm curious. As you talked about that, I'm it reminded me of your foray into your band that you put together for the school talent show.
Talent show. Yeah.
And how was it Van Halen you guys did?
We did do it. So at a certain point, right, we got into music enough, and I liked it enough where I did form a band in my sophomore year of high school. Cameron Carlson was our lead guitarist. And we picked up other guys to play keys and bass and drums for us. Mm-hmm. And of course, the dude that doesn't have any talent, he is the de facto singer. So that was me, right? So we did audition, right? It's not like in our other episode where we talk about open talent shows. We actually did audition, and I think they let us in on the talent of those other guys.
Right.
But we played Jump by Van Halen. So Cameron also did learn, the finger tapping and everything. We had a guy who learned that, synth on the keys and stuff for that Jump by Van Halen. Yeah. And then I ruined it by singing.
Well, you know what? The way I remember it is you made up for the lack of singing with your energy.
I try to have a lot of energy, yeah. And the other thing too is that place wasn't really rigged. If you for a high school auditorium, if it's just a singer, you're good because you play the track in the back in the school. But if you've got a drummer and a guitarist and a bassist and a keyboard player all rigged up, then you're not going to hear the singer.
Yeah.
Right. And I made up for that by singing harder, not better. Right. And so I didn't hit any sync.
I remember your mom leaned over to me, and she said, "I don't think he's making a career."
No way.
And I said,
if I remember, we were one of the opening acts so that they could get our drums and stuff out of the way really quick. And I'm pretty sure you guys took off after the opening act.
Well, we stayed a little bit long enough for me to realize that I had drilled something into y'all's heads that you didn't know I was lying about until that night.
Tone deafness?
No. So you were, if I'm not mistaken, were you the MC of that, or was
No, that was another one.
Okay, it was another one.
Yeah, because that was my sophomore year, and after that, I was part of the student council, so instead of being in the talent show, I got to organize the talent show.
Okay,
and that's when I didn't perform ever again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I remember, I think when you're a dad, you kind of lump a lot of stuff together. But I remember you had these, as people would switch when you were emceeing, people were switching in the background, and you would ask questions of the crowd and have these games and these contests going on. Do you remember what I'm referring to here?
No, I don't.
So great.
Was this when I was in high school?
Yeah. Here's what happens. Okay, you're gonna remember once I tell you.
Okay.
So you said, you was a multiple choice question you put up there, right? And you said, what band has the most number one hits?
Okay, I remember this. Okay, let me let me just give a little bit more context to that, right?
Okay.
So in between, so this was later on, right? So that would have been my sophomore year that I screeched Van Halen, right? I screeched David Lee Roth, right?
Right.
Which I couldn't even do the split kick, so I didn't do him justice even a little bit, right? So the next year I was the MC instead. Like I said, I was organizing it. And in between acts, we'd put up, trivia questions.
Right.
Right?
Right. And engage the crowd.
Yeah.
Keep them going.
Yeah. And I don't think you came to this one. I think I told you about this afterward.
I remember seeing it.
Do you really?
And maybe I remember seeing it because I visualized it.
You might have.
Okay.
Because I think you only came to the one I performed in.
Okay.
Which, bummer. But so we put up trivia questions, and one of the trivia questions was what artist or group, right, has the most number one hits of all time?
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And the answers were, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, the Bee Gees, and I think I threw a Hootie and the Blowfish in there.
Right.
There's always an answer that definitely isn't it, right?
Yeah.
And the first person's like, it's the Beatles for sure, right?
Yeah.
Right? Second person, Michael Jackson. Third person's like, is it Hootie and the Blowfish? Right? The answer was the Bee Gees, right?
Right.
Now, anybody who's watching and knows their music history, they might know it's not the Bee Gees. Right?
But it wasn't our home.
The reason that it was that is because growing up, you were not a Beatles fan.
Right.
And so you used to tell us, the Bee Gees have more number one hits than the Beatles.
You couldn't check me on the internet back then.
Nope.
I'll never forget when you guys figured out you could fact check me.
Yep.
And it ruined half my game.
Yeah.
Half my game was gone.
You were just spouting, dude.
I was just spouting. I was creating a world for you guys.
Yeah.
We're the Bee Gees.
We're the greatest selling artists of all time. Which I still live there sometimes.
I do too. Yeah, I got found out in the worst way possible.
Yeah. Which, for anybody fact checking us right now, I'm pretty sure it is the Beatles.
I'm pretty sure it
is.
If
not Katy Perry or something like that recently is overpassed. I'd have to hop on the Wikipedia page to learn.
There you go.
I don't remember.
Put it in the comments.
In 2010, it was the Beatles. It was not the Bee Gees.
It was not the Bee Gees.
And it wasn't close either. I'm pretty sure the Beatles had double the number one hits that the Bee Gees did.
I'm guessing, and I could be wrong here.
Yeah.
I guess my guess is I know I have the Beatles' greatest hits.
Oh, you have the Bee Gees' greatest hits album?
Greatest hits album. My guess is you do too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I only have a couple of CDs.
So that's what dads can do for their kids. They can create a world.
Yeah.
An alternate world.
Yeah. The Beatles have never made me feel more than a woman. So so they can shove it, right?
I don't know that they've ever helped you understand how deep is your love.
How deep my love is.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
So
we could keep going.
We better stop.
Yeah.
The people that don't know the Bee Gees won't know.
Yeah, but there was needless to say, there was an uproar because there was a lot of, I think that there's only two types of people who love the Beatles.
Yeah.
Right? Old fogies.
Right.
And high school kids who want to be important.
Right. Yeah.
And they latch onto the Beatles because they know it's like
it's an easy game.
Yeah. By being a Beatles fan young, you inherit importance because they were so important.
Right.
And so there was an uproar of all of those band and drama nerds that jumped after me. The Bee Gees have 12 number one hits the Beatles have 15 and the Bee Gees only have 8. You know what I mean? They were fact checking me because I easily could have looked it up at using the school internet when I put the trivia questions together.
You'd had no question at that
no.
moment.
It was that was the gospel. Yeah.
The good book of Jetzel.
The good book of Jetzel.
Had the Bee Gees.
Yep.
It's pretty dang good back in the day.
Thou shalt.
Well, let me ask you this:
Thou shalt boogie.
was there ever a death that shook you? I mean,
Yeah. So
celebrity?
So there's two of them that come to mind. I want to tell you the reason I asked this question.
Okay, good.
Right, because I wanted to know your take on it, because there was one year, I want to say it was maybe like 2019, where there was a slew of celebrity deaths, especially in the nerddom, right, in pop culture.
Gotcha.
Right. I want to say that it was first it was Alan Rickman, right?
Okay.
Right, he played Snape in Harry Potter, and he was in Die Hard.
Okay.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Fallen.
Yep. And was he in Robin Hood Men in Tights too?
Yeah, he could have been.
Okay.
One of those.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, one of those.
First Alan Rickman died, right?
Okay.
And everyone from my millennial generation, they love Harry Potter, right? So all I saw on Facebook was like, oh, not Severus Snape, right?
Yeah.
And I'm over there like, he was an a-hole the whole series until the last movie. Get out of here. He's
hated
the
him.
worst.
Yeah.
And then,
by the way, he wasn't that. I never saw the last movie.
oh,
Did
you find it?
Did you just?
I just spoiled
He
that
turns into a good guy.
he was a double agent the whole time. Right?
I thought he was a bad guy, but he's a double agent.
He was a double agent,
There you
right?
go. Learn
He was a
something.
double agent, right?
There you go.
Which doesn't explain why he was a turd to. He could be a double agent without treating Harry like a crazy person. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anyway, it was Alan Rickman, and then I could be getting 2 years mixed up, but I remember there was one year where a bunch of those kinds of people. I want to say that was the same year that Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, died, and her mom and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just remember it felt like all year long, all these people on Facebook and Instagram were like, "This one hurts," you know.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there like, "Really? Like, yeah, you love the movies, but
Yeah.
Alan Rickman hurt you, you know?" And so I didn't believe in it. I believed in like, boy, you simping for celebrities? Like, it's lame, right?
Right.
The first one that didn't like devastate me, but it did catch me off guard was Robin Williams,
Yeah.
right? And that was interesting too, because so for a little bit I lived in Argentina, right?
Right.
And it was a service mission, right? I was doing Jesus work over there, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't watch a whole lot of TV, right? We were focused on doing that stuff. And I remember one time we were visiting with this family. We were in their home. Okay, I'm going to tell you more about the story just for context,
good.
right? So this is in a spot called Marcos Paz, it would be Buenos Aires, right? The province of Buenos Aires out in the west part.
He's actually saying Buenos Aires, not.
Oh,
he
yeah.
said it with such an
I'm
accent.
doing
He
pretentious.
jumped back into.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just went into pretension.
At the Atlanta airport when we were boarding there.
Yeah.
There was the entire Atlanta airport is staffed by black people, and all of a sudden we hear boarding for Buenos Aires, right? And it was a black dude, right? Yeah. So I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and it was in Marcos Paz, right? And we had booked this visit with his family that lived like several miles away, and we didn't have bikes or cars, so we walked out there, right? And we're sitting with his family, and they have the TV on in the background, right? And usually you're taught to, hey, see if you can get the TV turned off so that you can talk about Jesus, right?
Right.
But usually it's not a good idea to walk in and be like, can you please turn the TV off the moment, right? So you settle in, you see how they're doing, right? You shoot the breeze, and then you say, hey, is it okay if we leave you with a message? Can we turn off the TV? Right. In that intermediary part before we got the TV turned off, I look up, and it was TMZ, or it was Extra, or what's the other one? ET, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was an ET report, and it said Robin Williams dies of suicide, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that one was a big deal until I saw it, and I went, oh, whoa.
Right.
And it might be because I wasn't watching much TV.
Yeah.
So any injection into the real world at that point was going to be weird for me anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I started to think, I was like, yeah, I mean, you think about all the movies that he made, and especially when you dig into it, like, that's a once in a lifetime dude.
Oh,
like, not even once in a decade, once in a generation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's a dude who's...
There's not a whole lot of Robin Williams out there.
There's none. I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just irreplaceable. Irreplaceable
Yeah.
because of the variety of things he could do.
Yeah.
And the way that he died too was shocking. Right?
Yeah, because
Because you wouldn't expect that from him. You know,
because he
nobody
was
knew.
Yeah, everybody knew that he had struggled with drugs and stuff like that, but he was on the up and up apparently, is what I had heard, and then all of a sudden he wasn't, and he was gone, right?
Yeah.
And I think about the movies that I love that he was in. He played the genie in Aladdin, which is like
Greatness.
unbeaten.
Yeah.
We love RV. I've mentioned
love
RV a
RV.
couple times.
Yeah.
RV is one of our favorites, so that one really bothered me.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I said, maybe it's because it was the time and place. It was weird. It was weird to get that kind of news when you were kind of sequestered, right?
Yeah.
The one that actually did really hurt my heart was just like 2 years ago, right? And I shouldn't have been doing that. I was sitting in church scrolling on my phone.
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah. We all do it. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah, listen to the sermon or whatever.
Don't do what we do.
Yeah,
What we
yeah.
say. Do what we say, not what we do.
Yeah. Turn into airplane mode. You
Yes.
don't need to be scrolling Instagram during church.
Yeah. Go pull up your scriptures.
Unfortunately, I was, right?
Yeah.
And I found out that Jason David Frank had passed away.
I don't even know who that is.
A lot of people may not know who it is off the top of their head. Jason David Frank played Tommy Oliver.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Oliver, the White Ranger.
The White Ranger.
Okay, the Green Ranger turned White Ranger. For a lot of people, he's their Green Ranger. Mm-hmm. For me, he's the White Ranger because the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, was a staple, right?
Yeah.
And Tommy, like, legit was one of my heroes as a kid. Mm-hmm. He was the leader of the Power Rangers. He was the coolest. He was like the only guy that had like a ponytail that didn't make him look like a freak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. He wore it well, didn't he?
Yeah. It shouldn't have worked, right? And maybe it was the 90s. Maybe it was a little bit more acceptable back then.
Yeah,
Although I saw a lot of pretty rough ponytails in the 90s, Do you remember the guy?
Ponytails are always rough.
Yeah, they're always been rough.
But yeah.
Do you know what the worst one is? Do you remember in Seinfeld? Do you remember Elaine? There's a guy who works at a clothing store, and he says, if you come back tomorrow, I'll get you a discount. That dude had like...
He had the worst.
He had like Uncle Keith Fluffy in the front, and then all of a sudden, just a horse's butt sprouted out the back of his head. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, Tommy
Isn't
Oliver.
he the one that sold George the suit that?
No, I think it's a different episode.
Okay.
That's a different episode.
But I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
He was trying to use
the discount
for Elaine.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the worst one.
Right.
The best one was Tommy Oliver. Tommy Oliver,
Yeah.
right? Who went on to be the Red Ranger in Turbo. He came back in Dino Force. I'm a big nerd for Power Rangers.
You're hitting some stuff I don't even know about.
Yeah.
The only one I'm really, truly familiar with is Ivan Ooze and his...
From the Mighty Morphin
Yeah,
movie.
he deserves some sort of actor's award for that.
Yeah, Ivan Ooze is the best, dude.
Yes. One of the best
Yep.
bad guys of all time.
I agree.
And his henchmen, the flying, whatever the crazy looking things were.
Yeah, the oozes, something.
They were flying around and...
Oh yeah, those pterodactyl bird things. Yeah.
Greatness, man.
And then he had the giant metal like scorpion things
towards the end that he dug up.
Greatness, dude.
Great movie.
But yeah, Tommy Oliver was like legit one of my heroes as a kid, right? And the more I thought that it was crazy because in that moment I thought of, it's almost like when I found out he passed, it was like I need to love him more than just being a dude who hit people, right?
Right.
So I started thinking about that movie. This is all happening in church.
Right.
I'm thinking about that movie, and I'm going, you know what? He didn't just kick butt. He took Fred, that little kid, under his wing and taught him how to be a hero. And I'm building all this stuff up to make Tommy a bigger hero than he already was, right?
Didn't he give the little kid credit at the end, too?
At the very end, he was like, man, the Power Rangers saved the world. I've watched this movie recently, by the way. It's one of my favorites, yeah.
And if I recall, what did he say back to him?
He goes, yeah, but you saved all the parents.
There it is. I knew he did something like that.
You're the real hero, Fred. He's like, maybe you'll be a ranger one day, right? And I mean, think about watching that
I just got goosebumps.
I know,
bro.
watching it as an
Someday
8-year-old.
I could be
think
a
about
Power
Tommy
Ranger
or
hero.
Adam or any of those dudes looking at you going, maybe you could be a ranger one day, right?
And you were little too, weren't you, when you first saw it?
Yeah.
So you were like the little kid that wanted to grow.
This came out in like 96 or 7, right? So I was watching it at 5 years old. I was born in 94, so it would have been making memories for me at like 5 or 6. Right?
Which is exactly the age where you say, I could be
a ranger. Right?
Well, I've seen that impact on you in a lot of things. You're laughing.
But sorry, I'll let you get
Yeah.
back. But same thing, Jason David Frank also killed himself. He committed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Which made me hurt even harder.
Sure.
Right? To
Because
think,
there's pain and suffering that goes along with it. It's not just somebody passing away like Prince.
Yeah.
It's somehow they were in turmoil.
Yeah.
It hurts your heart.
There was a storm in them that like couldn't be resolved, and that's something that I've never even considered. That's
Right.
That's not a brainwave that enters on me, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really devastating to think that a guy who had been and was my hero still
Yeah.
didn't see the heroism in himself,
Right.
And that messed me up super hard, man.
And he had some challenges that made him suffer so deeply.
Yeah.
It hurts you, doesn't it?
It hurt, yeah. It hurt, And it was one of those deals where it's like, I mean, obviously Jason David Frank didn't go on to do much past his Power Ranger career, and I'm sure that was tough, to be at the peak when you're 21, 22 maybe.
Right.
And then to not have much after. So that might have had something to do with it, And I also wondered how many people told him you were my hero instead of you are my hero.
Yeah. That would be tough, wouldn't it?
And it made me think like, dude, I'm if you're my hero, you are my hero. You're never not going to be my hero. You got to stay. I'm never going to tell nobody you were my hero.
Right.
Because it's
the
other guy like that is Benny the Jet Rodriguez. That dude's my hero.
Right.
Two most important movies of my childhood are the Mighty Morphin movie and Sandlot.
Yep, Sandlot.
Right. Same dudes too, right? Taking dudes under their wings, lifting them up.
He did that too.
Yeah.
Benny gave the kid a glove, a hat.
Benny saw that new.
He said, "Stand out there, put your glove up,
and
I'm
gonna make you a star." And I'm gonna.
That gets you going, doesn't it?
Yeah. And he saw it, and what I love also about Benny wasn't just like, "Hey guys, hey guys, we need to fellowship this boy."
Yeah.
It was Scotty.
They do it.
Take that raggedy hat, throw it in the fire, wear this one. Here's a glove. I'm gonna build you up so that you can be part of this.
Yeah.
Right. That's the best part of that for me.
Have you ever had?
And he pickled the beast. I mean, you don't get no better, right?
It makes me. Have you ever had somebody say something to you that, because I have, and maybe I can tell my story while you think about it.
Go for it.
So when I was,
they told you something like,
it changed
you
my
could
life.
be a ranger one day.
Yeah. When I was about 12, I was 12. I know I was 12. I was at church. If you don't already know,
we're
a
church
lot of
goers.
things happen at church.
Yeah.
And I remember.
We're God-fearing men.
Yes, we are. We're God-fearing men. Not in this moment, but most of the time.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember I grew up with no money. I was wearing a white T-shirt that said Beach Bum on it. And you're supposed to wear a white collared shirt and a tie to perform certain tasks at church, right?
Sure, yeah.
Well, we couldn't afford a white shirt with a button up at the time. So I had a T-shirt on, and they would just drop a old man tie around my neck to do what I was supposed to.
Okay.
And I remember my pants were high water because we couldn't afford. My mom used to sew extension on the bottom of pants. She called it a racing stripe.
Yeah, which was cool when you're 5.
It wasn't really cool. But
she tried to church it up for you to make it.
She tried to make you
think it was cool.
I have a picture of this
of racing stripes.
I have a picture of me in that T-shirt. I'll show you sometime.
Okay.
But so I remember going to church.
When we have a Patreon one day, we'll put it on there.
I'm going to church. I'm ticked off. We're broke. We're poor. I got nothing going for me. I'm exceptionally small for my age. As a freshman, I was 85 pounds, right? And I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to play basketball. I had all these things, but I couldn't. I grew up in a neighborhood where tremendous athletes. I couldn't get on courts.
Yeah.
It was just, I was struggling, man. And I remember I went to church, and I'm walking up there with nasty, angry face, doing what I'm supposed to, because if I don't want to get in trouble by my parents. I didn't want to do it. I was mad. And a fellow walked up to me. His name is Tony Brigman. And he knew my dad. He wasn't great friends with my dad, but they served together in some different capacities. And he walked up to me, and I think he saw the fire in my eyes.
That you were angry.
That I was angry.
Yeah. Not like a determination fire.
No, not like a determination fire. And he put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, "You know what, Kyle?" He says, you got a warrior in you. I can see you're a warrior. I can see that. You're going to be a warrior. And I looked up at him, and only twice in my life have I ever seen this. he looked at me like with love, and it's like he was for real.
Mm.
And he made me feel like he was for real. Like this dude really truly believes this crap. And the only other person that's ever looked at me like that, only other man, is my dad.
Yeah.
And so I recognized that look.
Yeah.
And Tony Brigman was like, "You're a warrior." And I remember thinking, I don't know if you're like this, but when I hear things and I can't let them go, it means something, right? And if it keeps me up, or I wake up thinking about it, or I'm like, it means I need to think about it or do something with it.
Yeah.
And it changed me. And I remember those little words to me. You're a warrior. You're going to grow up to do great things. You're a warrior, Kyle. And I remember thinking, if that guy believes it, and I could tell he believed it because the way he looked into my eyes, maybe I am. And I remember thinking, you know what? I'm a freaking warrior.
Yeah.
And a warrior doesn't get mad. He goes to work. He does different stuff than just getting ticked off.
Yeah.
And it shook me at 12 years old, And I'm like, and it kind of was, a lot of things happened at that moment, at that age. My dad said some stuff to me. I started having a little success here and there that gave me a little confidence. And I think it was like the first step in this long progression I feel like I'm on to eventually try to be somebody,
Yeah.
Feel like I'm worthy of being somebody,
Yeah.
And I'm curious if that's ever,
I don't know if there's ever been someone who said something that like changed me.
Yeah.
But there's a a grown man said something to me as a kid that I'll think about every now and then, and it'll build me up.
Yeah.
And that was Coach Buzz.
Oh, I remember him.
Coach Buzz, right?
How old were you?
Obviously, as
7 or
if
8?
I'm a huge
Coach Pitch.
Coach Pitch, right?
Yeah.
Coach Pitch baseball. If I'm a huge Sandlot fan, I'm playing Little League, right?
Yep.
I'm Lil League,
Lil.
I'm just kidding. I like to say Lil Caesars and Little Wayne. I like to mix them up. Anyway, we're playing Little League, right? And I was on the Mets. That was the best, dude. That had to have been the best part about Little League baseball, is that instead of putting you in generic reds or blues, they gave you
the hat and the shirt
for a
and
major
pants.
league team.
You were there.
That was it. And I don't know if they do that everywhere but Texas.
I don't know, but they do it in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were the Mets, right? The New York Mets, and we played against the Cubs and we played against the Lions. I don't know if you remember anybody else that was in that team.
I remember.
Or in that league.
I don't know the other teams, but I remember you being the Mets, and I remember
I remember the Lions.
I remember you being in the catcher's gear that was like 10 times too big, and the chest protector went to the ground, and the mask was just draped on you.
Yeah,
you got to play all the positions, right?
Yeah, you played all the positions,
right.
And obviously halfway through the season, they're like, okay, this kid's good at first base, this kid's good at here, right? So I played. Okay, so the first year I played Little League, I played for the Rockies, and I don't remember what that coach's name was. Right. For whatever reason, I get switched to a different team the next year, and I'm playing for Coach Buzz in the New York Mets. Right. And the first year we had blue T-shirts, gray pants, and the blue T-shirt had the big orange NY, and then we had the blue-orange NY.
Yep.
Right.
I remember.
And we were terrible that first year. We didn't win a single game.
Right.
That first year with Coach Buzz and the New York Mets. The second year, I don't know if there was something dropped in our coffers, but we got an upgrade, and we were wearing pinstripe the second year. We kept our blue and orange hat, and then we did white with blue pinstripe.
That's it.
Right?
Yep.
And that was it, dude. We were. It felt great. You felt like you were there, right?
Right.
This is the bigs, right?
This is the bigs.
Yeah.
I love it. Kids out in the outfield picking flowers. This is the bigs, though.
Yeah, blowing dandelions. Yeah. And the second year, something happened, man. We played our tails off, and we ended up winning the league championship, right, with Coach Buzz, right?
Remind me to tell you what happened.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, you know why it changed?
Yes.
Okay. I think I know why. But anyway, Coach Buzz's son was on the team, right?
Yep.
One of my best buddies in elementary school, Dylan Harris, was on that team.
Yep.
There was a Hispanic dude named Israel that was on that team.
I remember Israel.
And then there was a shortstop named Dallas.
Oh yeah.
And
super fast kid.
Super fast. and our first baseman was the tallest kid on the team. His name was Jake.
Oh yeah, I remember him too. You're bringing up these. I remember these kids.
Yeah, dude. I'm kind of remembering them now too, right?
Right.
But we end up winning this championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was like a movie for me, obviously, right? This was the bigs, and we just won it all.
And there was
right?
background music playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Red Hot Chili Peppers from the Mighty Morphin movie when they're skydiving. Yeah. Greatness. So obviously, if I'm in a movie, right, we're leaving, and I walk around the dugout, and I look at Coach Buzz, and I said, "Hey, Coach Buzz, thanks for the best day of my life."
You set him up.
I said that to him.
Oh, that's so great.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I walked away, Yeah. Don't you forget. And I freeze framed it, right? I was in a movie, so why wouldn't I go all in and tell Coach Buzz, thanks for the best day of my life?
Beautiful.
Because that's what it was, right? It was the
Absolutely.
best. So a few days later, Coach Buzz calls me up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Hey, Alek." By the way, I was an outfielder, and halfway through the season, I was like, "Coach, can I try second base? Because I think I'd be good at it."
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up becoming the second baseman, and I loved it. It was my favorite, right? So Coach Buzz calls me up, and he says, "Hey, Alek, I just want to let you know," he said, "I didn't know it was the best day I had ever had until you told me it was the best day ever."
Oh, that's so great, man.
Right?
So
he
great.
said, "It was obviously awesome." He said, "But thanks for giving that to me."
Oh, it's so awesome.
Right? He said, "Thanks for telling me," because I didn't say, "This is the best day ever." I said, "Thanks for the best day. Thanks for the best day of my life."
Right.
Making it because of him, right?
Yeah.
And he said, "You gave that to me, and it changed. Dude, you did that for me. Thank you."
Wow.
Right? He said,
So a 7-year-old changes an adult's life.
but then him telling me that I had made a difference for him, right?
Right.
And he said, and then he told me, which is probably why he said, "You've been selected to be the second baseman all-star
Oh, that's
in
great.
the all-star game."
That's so great.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's this weekend, and we want you to be there. And we had a trip planned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying, "Well, thanks, Coach Buzz, but I can't do it. We're heading out to College Station to visit
Oh, that's right.
Alan Bingham and his family."
Yeah.
Right? And he said, "Well, you just changed the world for two people." And I said, "What?" And he says, "Israel gets to be this."
Oh, that's great.
He was the second runner-up for the All-Star second base, right? Because me and him had, right? I was good at second base, but I was a little bit better than him at outfield, so we swapped all season, right?
Right.
And he said, "I get to go." He said, "I get to go tell Israel that he's the All-Star second baseman."
That's
right?
so great, man.
And he's like, "You just made a huge difference for me and for him," right? And like, it's a little bit different with your story. It didn't like change my perspective and turn me into anything.
Right.
But every now and then I'll remember Coach Buzz telling me, "Thank you for giving me that." Right. And I'm like, dang, that was easy, Like if I could make that big a difference for Coach Buzz, then I could be handing out thank yous and thanks for giving me this. I can do that as often as I want, man. I can make a difference for people.
You know what? The idea behind that is so stinking powerful, man. Here you and I are getting emotional about a freaking coach pitch game.
Coach pitch game, right? Yeah. What was the little black kid that played pitcher? Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name.
Because the coach obviously pitched, but there was a pitcher.
Yeah.
There was a kid, and it was
I can't remember his
it was the
name.
only black kid on our team.
Yeah, I can't remember his
Okay.
name. But by the way, I have a ball downstairs that all y'all signed. I still have it.
Oh, from
I have
the
that
Mets
baseball.
championship
I
team.
have that baseball. It's
That's
sitting in a little
awesome,
gold
dude.
glove.
That's awesome.
And it has all your signatures
all
on
the
it.
Mets
Because I was an
championship.
assistant coach on that
Yeah,
team.
yeah. That rocks, dude. That's
Well, you know,
awesome. I know. I'm getting emotional thinking about Coach Buzz. That's crazy, right?
What it's reminding me of, and I've seen you do this, is, and when you have an opportunity to say something to somebody, you don't have to say things, but when you say it, you never know how it's going to impact.
Sure.
people, right?
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, it's a passing thing. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It may not make a difference,
Right.
and that's okay.
Right. And who cares? You're still kind and you still say it.
Yeah.
But for Buzz to come back and tell you that is just, that's the greatest ever. I never knew that story.
Yeah.
That it impacted him like that. A 7-year-old You know what I'm saying? Because you're trying to
Yeah.
do the movie.
Because I was having my Sandlot moment, right?
Yeah.
Where I went, and that was the best summer of my life. That's what I was trying to have, right? It was selfish, really. I was trying to give that to myself.
You were writing your script, weren't
Yeah,
you?
I was writing my own story. Yeah, yeah.
I love that. Well,
Yeah, man.
that's really kind of cool because if you think about it, a lot of us, I think, are unconsciously writing our script as we go.
Yeah,
But to think of it as, how can I make this moment like a movie moment?
yeah,
Is really a very powerful
yeah,
thing to be able
Yeah.
to do. You know?
Yeah.
I've been,
you get to be the main character of your own story.
and you always do, right?
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think so often we're just subconsciously living our lives.
We get
instead
beat
of,
down.
We do.
Things are hard, man, and it's really easy. Like even just with the 9 to 5, man, that can beat you down to the point where you feel like you're a crony and someone else into your CEO's.
Right.
And obviously you don't want to live. I've never really lived there. I've never been there too long.
Yeah.
But there's been times where I've been at my desk and I'm like, man, I'm just
working for the man.
I'm just a side
making that- I'm
piece.
just making that guy rich. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to like take the power back a little bit.
Well,
You
and
know what I mean?
I think just through simple things, it's not a lot of our lives are going to be just mundane and monotonous, but there's moments where we can, if we're thoughtful, can change that into something really cool.
Yeah.
I think I've shared this with you, and I didn't even know we are going to go this direction. How much time we got?
Just a couple minutes. We can wrap up with
Okay.
this. Yeah.
So years ago, and it was probably when you were in your high school days, I wasn't enjoying going to church at all. And I thought, this isn't good. My dad told me, I asked my dad one time, how do I raise good boys? And the best advice he gave me was, well, go to church, but let your boys see you go happily. And let them see you, not just take them, but you go too. Let them see you going and getting stuff out of it. And if you model that behavior, they're much more likely going to be,
Yeah.
They need to see it's important to you more than you just take
And
it.
obviously, and I bet you applied that not just to church, but to a lot of different stuff.
That's what
right?
I've tried to do for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But I wasn't enjoying church, and I remember going thinking, I'm not really getting anything out of this, and I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And that very Sunday, I'm sitting in the back in that state. I'm not enjoying this. I really need to show my boys that it's important to be here. This is before the twins came along.
Yeah.
And I remember a guy got up to the pulpit and said some stuff, and he bared his soul. And you could see him. It wasn't comfortable for him to do that. It was a hard thing he was doing, and he was talking about a very difficult time. And he wasn't a guy who was a loudmouth. He was kind of reserved.
Yeah. Because there's people who bare their souls regularly.
Yeah.
So they're not even.
They're not even really bearing their soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what their soul looks like.
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. It's been a
But
rough
this wasn't
month.
one of those guys.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it impacted me. And so I remember going home and writing up on a piece of paper, listen, bro,
Thank you.
thank you. You made a difference for me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I just wrote it down and I signed it and I put it in an envelope. And the next Sunday I went to church and he was standing there talking to somebody. And I just opened up his jacket and slipped it in. I said, read that later. Right?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, okay, who am I gonna find this week? And I thought, if I look, maybe I'll find, right? And so I thought, who can I look? And I remember scanning, thinking, who else is doing good and is of goodness and that I can tell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, just tell.
Put them on a pedestal for a minute.
Yeah.
Give them their lime. Yeah.
And I remember I found somebody. I went home and did the same thing. And it wasn't, 2 pages.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a quick blurb
Yeah.
in a little envelope. And I go back to church the next Sunday to give my second one out. And the guy sees me. And he just loses it in tears. And he's running at me.
Yeah.
I don't even really know the guy.
Yeah.
And he throws his arms around me and he hugs me. He says, you have no idea. And I'm like, what? I don't know what I did.
Yeah.
And he just said, Kyle,
Needed that.
I can't tell you. Right? And I'm like, holy crap. This guy and I we're
brothers now.
We're connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember doing, and I thought, this is going to be my new thing.
Uh-huh.
And I remember for the next 6 months, I mean, every Sunday, I would go looking for somebody. And every week I found somebody, and I just started writing letters and writing letters.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm the most popular guy at church. and you know, a little bit self-serving.
Yeah, because
but
it was honestly to make yourself like church more.
I wanted to like church more.
Yeah.
And what I found is that when I looked for goodness and looked for moments of greatness or goodness, or somehow I found them. And what I realized is that, you know, we go to church every Sunday and we can go a year and nothing. It's like, what do I remember?
Yeah.
And I thought,
which is that, like I've said it already, but it's the case with a lot of things.
It's the case with a lot of things.
Yeah, you look up and you're like, I've been in my job for another year.
Yeah.
And everything seems kind of the same, you know?
And but in those 6 months, I even had some guy come up to me and say, dude, where's my letter? I'm like, what? Seriously.
Yeah.
I remember his name.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He came up to me and said, I said, what? And he says, there's this thing
I've been
around,
doing
bro. There's a rumor. And I'm like, well, do something worth.
Yeah. Shape up. Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, that guy, a couple months later, he found out his wife had cancer.
Oh,
and
wow.
he team teach with me to the 16-year-old class.
Okay.
And he came into class, and there's usually 16-year-old kids in there. And he said, I just found out my wife has cancer, and I'm shook. And he said to the 16-year-olds, he said, help me.
Yikes.
And they started opening scripture and quoting, and they uplifted him. And I'm like, holy crap. That's some beautiful crap.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to go home.
Yeah.
And I think I typed his up because I think it was 3 or 4 pages.
You needed to say,
I needed to say that, you know?
Yeah.
But it was like, but I realized that very simply by looking for good and finding it and just scribbling something down and giving it to him, I could create a moment that separated them from the monotony. And it was separating me from the monotony too.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool experiment. And by the way, I ended up taking pictures and kept copies of all the letters. And I've got like a database of all the people I've ever written.
Wow.
One of them, and you know, I'm not going to remember her name now, Karen Davis. Her husband came to me one time.
Yeah, Steve.
And I could see some pain in his eyes. And he's got some kids that have some disabilities, some mental disabilities, and I do too. You know, you've got some brothers.
Yes, there's some brotherhood there.
Yeah, and he asked me some really deep, hard questions, and he was struggling. And I went home and wrote to him and gave it to him, and he came back to me years later, and he says, I still have that letter. I read it every couple months. And you know, maybe the point of this thing is, and we started out with things that impacted you, that were something that impacted you.
Yeah.
How easy is it for us to just take ourselves out of
If we're trying to make this into a Saturday morning special,
Yeah.
you don't have to write, I want to be your lover to impact people.
You don't have to do that.
You can just tell them,
just
thank
say
you.
something nice. Yeah.
Let's turn this into
the
end of a He-Man episode. Remember, kids.
Remember, kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how
heroism doesn't need to be with muscles and a sword.
Yeah,
you know?
and maybe the point to this whole thing is think about somebody that changed you, or that said something to you, and try to hunt them down and tell them.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, I wonder what Coach Buzz is up to, man. It would be great to see.
You know, when you started talking about it, I'm like, I wonder if I can find him.
Yeah. I wonder if we could find Coach Buzz.
You know, it'd probably be a next.
What's his real name anyway? Who knows, man?
He probably doesn't even go by Buzz anymore. Who knows? Right?
Oh man, that would be even better. What's up, Buzz? And he's like, well, I haven't been called Buzz.
We got to find.
Yeah,
Buzz.
yeah. I haven't heard that name in decades. Well, thanks for sharing that with me.
That's awesome, man.
Cool.
That's a great chat, Alec. Thanks for.
Cool. We'll see everybody next time.
All right. See you.